So today I'm going to be showing you around Oastler Lake Provincial Park, which is located in Parry Sound, Ontario. And this is on the smaller side of provincial parks that we've ever been to, at about 150 lots. The main advantage to this campground is that it's very close to downtown Parry Sound, which offers a lot of great tourist attractions. The main downside about this campground is that some of the areas are quite hilly, and space for large trailers is limited, so keep that in mind if you're coming into the park. The campground itself is located on Oastler Lake. This is on the smaller side of lakes, but it is a great lake for swimming in. It stays fairly warm. It's great for paddleboarding and fishing as well. The campground includes a boat launch, and there's no extra cost to launch your boats here. It also includes its main beach for people to swim at, and there is a separate dog beach as well near the boat launch. So great for your furry friends. You can let them loose and they can have a really good time in the water. Due to the size of this campground, there is only one single comfort station that includes showers. Aside from that though, there are outhouses that are located throughout the park, but of course they don't have the shower facilities included. The campsites here are split into 3 different areas. You've got the Beachside area, the Hillside area, then you've got the Peninsula area. Our campsite is located in the Hillside area, and as the name implies, it is quite hilly. There were a lot of ruts when we came here because of a recent rainstorm, and it was a little bit of a challenge getting our 19-foot escape up into the campsite that we had booked. But I think if it wasn't for those ruts in the road from the rainstorm, it probably would have been fine. Because of the way that this campground is positioned, there's actually quite a few lakefront lots. We're going to look at an example here. This is lot 145. There is no electricity at this lot. However, you can see that there's beautiful lake views here. All of the lots come standard with 2 picnic tables and a fireplace. You'll also notice that all of the lots here are just gravel pads. Don't expect to see any concrete at this campground. Let's take another look at a campsite. This time we're going to look at 143. And this is clearly a tent campsite. And it's a little bit unique in that you're going up quite a steep hill. So you're going to be parking down at the bottom, and you're going to be walking your gear up to the top till we get to the actual campsite area here. So you've got your 2 picnic tables, you've got your fire pit, and you've got a spot to set up your tent. And you can see that's your driveway up to your campsite, but you're not driving up here. You're parking at the bottom, and that's actually quite typical for a lot of the sites here, where you have a parking pad near the bottom over a top of a hill, and you're gonna walk your gear up or down to wherever your campsite is located. Very few of the campsites here have any services. There's a small portion that do have power. None of the campsites have water, and none of them have sewer. However, there is a water filling station as you enter the campground, and of course there is a sewage dumping station for when you leave. So I'm currently walking around the Peninsula area of the campsite, and there are sites along each side of the peninsula. Most of these are only suitable for tents though. Not many of them would work very well for trailers, and that's because there's a lot of steep inclines in this area, as you can see. Although the hillside loop of this campground is much steeper, there are still some hills in the peninsula area as well. The only area of the campground that doesn't have hills is the Beachside campground. Another unique aspect of this campground is right at the tip of the peninsula, there are some walk-in only campsites. So I'm going to show you that now. You actually come to the top of a hill, you park in a parking lot. I'll show you that here now. So you can see there's parking spaces assigned to each of the campsites on the tip of the peninsula. So you park up here, and then you're gonna walk down a hill and then up another hill to get to your campsite. So we're working our way down to those tent-only walk-in campsites. You can see that there's some portable outhouses that are the closest thing that you're gonna get to a washroom for these. We've got to walk down this hill, and at the other side we're gonna get to the campsites. There is water here, so you don't need to walk all the way back up this hill to get water. You just need to do that to get to a washroom. But as we climb to the top, you're gonna see that even though this is a bit of trek, these campsites are still well worthwhile. This is campsite 200. You've got a few picnic tables and a fire pit, but we're right at the tip of a peninsula, so all around me I can see water views. And there's beautiful cedar trees as well. So it makes for a pretty unique setting. As we're walking through here, you can now see campsite 201. We flip around to this side, you can see 209. There's no real borders between these campsites. You're basically just kind of setting up in, I guess, what you would assume is the boundary for your campsite. While we're hearing that train in the background, I'll take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about that. All of the reviews that we read on the campground ahead of time told us that there was a lot of train noise at this campground. They were correct. If trains bother you, this is not the campground for you. All day, all night, there's trains. I personally love the sound of trains. Didn't bother me at all, but keep that in mind if you are booking at this campground and that kind of noise bothers you. So now that you've had a look at the walk-in only tent campsites on the peninsula, let's work our way back to the main campground loop. And just a warning as well, this area that I'm currently in does not allow generators or radios. Well, we're making our way back to the main loop of the campground. Let's talk a bit about some of the other amenities at this campground. As I mentioned earlier, there is a beach. There is no playground at this campground, but if you're into any kind of water activities, the beach is great. It's a nice warm water body, like I mentioned earlier. Great place for swimming. There is no Wi-Fi at this campsite. However, the cell phone signal is very good, so you won't have any issues with that part of things. There is no cable TV at this campground. That probably goes without saying, considering my comment about the services for the lots that I made earlier. So we're now back in the main loop, and I'll show you another beautiful campsite. This one is 133. And if we walk into it, this wouldn't be a bad spot for a trailer. Mind you, there is quite a steep hill to get up here. But once you are up here, probably a good spot for an 18 to 19 foot trailer. You've got your fire pit, and this is the best part. These are the kinds of views you're getting from the campsites up here. Again, this is on that peninsula loop. And if we look down into the distance, the next campsite over does have a trailer on it. I'd say that's probably a 16-foot trailer. So not a huge one, but they got a pretty prime location there. So this is the hill that you're going to be driving up if you're going to be coming up to campsite 133, just for a bit of reference here. At this campground, you're only about 10 minutes away from a grocery store and anything else that you would find in a mid-sized city. Parry Sound probably has a population of about 12,000 people, but it does get busy in the summer because we are close to cottage country here. There is a campground store. However, the only thing that it sells is campground swag. So there are some t-shirts and some badges, but don't expect to be able to buy any groceries or any food supplies at that campground store. I say this about a lot of campgrounds, especially state parks and provincial parks, but this is one where you're really going to want to respect the size of the campground that's recommended when you're reserving. The campsites here are on the smaller side. can be tight to get into. The roadways are fairly narrow. So don't get overly confident and think that you can fit a large trailer onto a site that says you can only fit an 18-footer. Here's another example of some of the unique sites that you run into. Let's check the number on this one. This one is 117. So this is your parking pad. Then we walk down to a pad that would be meant for your tent. And then of course, wow, look at how close to the water you are. That is the way to camp. Unfortunately, as is probably obvious, a trailer wouldn't work at this campsite. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna say is fairly controversial. And this statement is that stay away from the beachside campground. Now, the reason I say that, we actually almost ended up booking at the beachside campground. Why not? You're gonna be close to the beach, you're gonna have lake views, right? Well, that is generally true. And if you're here with a family and you're gonna be doing lots of swimming, beachside campground is probably the campground for you. But it is probably the least scenic out of all of the campsites or all of the loops at this campground. It's probably closer to what you would see at a private park or even a KOA, in that it's just a grid pattern of pull-through sites. There are some trees between each of the sites, so it's not too bad, but not really my cup of tea. And I'll show you some of those sites now. So this is the Beachside Loop, and it is true to form. You are right at the beach, not far away at all. And they are all pull-through sites, so if you're going to be here with a big trailer, this is probably just about the only area that your trailer is going to fit. But otherwise, not my favorite area of the campground. Since we're at the beach, I will take a minute to show you what it looks like. So nice long beach, nice clean water. It's a pretty sandy walkout. So not too bad at all. We actually did swim in here earlier this week. And for end of June, it's pretty warm. So now we're gonna walk up to the Hillside campground so I can show you what some of those lots look like. And at the same time, I'll show you our lot. So here is the bridge that crosses over to the Hillside campground. And I'm gonna have two recommendations for this area. I'm gonna say that lots 320 to 430 are beautiful lots, although steep hills to get up to them. 300 to 319, they are next to the river, but honestly, they're a little bit more low-lying. They feel like a little bit more of a swampy area. That would probably be my least preferred lots out of any of the ones here, aside from maybe the Beachside Loop. A good number of the campsites in the Hillside Loop do have power. They might all have power, you should double check that, but most of the ones that I've seen do indeed have power hookups. But like at most provincial parks, the power hookups can be far from your trailer, so make sure you bring those extension cords along. And you know what? I stand corrected. We are lot 4402 right now, and there is no power at this lot. It is a beautiful lot though. You're up high on the hill, and if we look down into the distance, the lake is down there. Although you don't have great lake views because of all of the tree cover. And as we're moving along here, here's another example of a lot. This one is 403. Again, this lot has no power. So really make sure that you check when you're booking. If you want power, regardless of which loop you're in, make sure that your specific campsite has power. This is one of the hills that we drove up to get our trailer to where it's at. And you can see that there's a fair amount of ruts in it right now. That's because before we got here, it had rained pretty hard for a number of days. And it's wet again today because it rained again. But as we work our way up to lot 407, that is where we're camping. We're pretty happy with our lot. It's It's a big space. We do technically, in the background, have a bit of a water view, but it's quite a distance away, and there is another site before us. When we first got here at the start of the week, there was no one at that campsite behind us, so we were able to see right down to the water. So, would we come camping here again? Dave and I were actually chatting about this yesterday, and we would definitely come back here. We know now which loops that we like and which ones that we like a little bit less. So either the Peninsula or the Hillside loop, we would definitely camp there again. Because it's so close to Parry Sound and there's so much to do, we did go out with our electric scooters a couple days ago, enjoyed some sights that way. We've been doing a little bit of biking as well throughout the campground. So it is one of those campgrounds that we'd come back to. It is on the smaller side compared to some of the other campgrounds that we've been to, so there's less to do in the park itself. But because of the close proximity, I'd recommend checking this place out. And as usual, if you do have any questions about this campground that I didn't answer in this video, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer those for you.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. Or even better, subscribe to our channel. It really does help us reach a wider audience. And don't forget to come back tomorrow to see where we go next.